Hello lovelies. I've got a ton of new subscribers, which is nice, so I'd just briefly like to talk about what I like to do on this channel, what I prefer to do, what I tend to do, and that is to use current events and drama and so on as a springboard to talk about the principles and the issues behind that, rather than necessarily the event itself, and to see how those principles and so on can apply to that event. So that's kind of what I tend to prefer to do. I don't always do that. Sometimes there's other things, jokes, skits, just generally rambling about various other things. But that's what I prefer to kind of tend to do. So that's mostly what you're in for here. So if you're new, please do check out my back catalogue and like and share anything that you happen to like. Now, with that in mind, a lot has happened over the past week or so, and I have been unable for a few days to really do much with YouTube due to unreliable power, being snowed in, not wanting to risk screwing up my computer, and so on. So a lot's happened that I've been unable to talk about, and I'd like to try and thread it all together. So we've got the YouTubers Union, proposed by Jorg. We've got the Purge on YouTube, and we've got Jack Dorsey at Twitter asking for tips on how to make it a less toxic platform, though he's very unlikely to listen to anyone who can actually help. So I'd like to talk about these and the central principle kind of that runs through all of them to try and bring it all together. But the main focus is the YouTubers Union, and how the principles and actions behind that can feed into the others. All of the current social media giants have a similar problem with them, in that they are essentially monopolies, and in that a combination of social pressure and corporate pressure is preventing them from being free platforms for people to express themselves on. In Facebook, that tends to be kind of a middle America, over-concerned mum kind of enforcement. On Twitter and YouTube, it tends to be more politically biased and based. Now, I'm left-wing, so the censoring and silencing of right-wing voices hypothetically shouldn't bother me so much. But it does, because it doesn't only ever hit them, it hits everybody. And that's a problem. I mean, look at the previous round of demonetizations and so on that was supposed to target extremist content and violent and dangerous content, but ended up impacting massively on political commentators, political channels, on horror reading channels, on channels like Zombie Go Boom, on channels like Jorg's, and I think a lot of us were massively affected if we were even slightly related to any of these things. The bar was set so low that practically anything could trip it. So that's one big problem. Then we've got another big problem in that the rules are unevenly applied, in that someone like a Logan Paul or whatever can essentially, even at this point, still get away with things that would get anyone else flung off a platform for perpetuity. I don't know whether he should. I would err on the side of he shouldn't. I mean, he's done stupid stuff, but even he has rights, in my estimation, to express himself in even ways that we might not like. And that's kind of where we are. This uneven censorship and control and suppression coming from these corporate interests, and the social pressure that comes from a lot of well-meaning do-gooders who don't seem to appreciate what happens when they push for censorship. We've seen some of them start to notice on Twitter, we've seen some of them start to notice on YouTube. Now, in response to this, Jorg has gotten angry, which is motivational, and has created this idea of a YouTubers Union, and so far most of what I've seen has been a lot of poo-pooing and not thinking that it's going to accomplish anything. Well, you never know until you try, so I support it, and I think more people should support it. I think not just creators but viewers should support it, because that's how you preserve a kind of diverse collection of things on the platform. And this union could provide a voice, a pressure group, a lobby group, if you like, to counterbalance some of the corporate and other censorious voices that we see on YouTube, and similar tactics could be used elsewhere. We don't have to agree on everything to come together to agree that the platform should be more open. One of the big things I learned during Gamergate was that it's possible to bring lots of people together with wildly different views in order to oppose something that you can all agree on as being bad. In that case, it was partially censorship and it was partially corruption in media. In this case, it's primarily censorship of a variety of different voices and diverse voices on YouTube. So this union could provide a way and a means to provide another voice counteracting the pressure coming the other way, because without us as content creators, without us as viewers of YouTube, they have nothing to offer advertisers. If we're not there, if we're not watching, if our eyeballs aren't on the videos, then they have nothing to sell. So their relationship with us is as fiscally and otherwise important as their relationship with the advertisers. They need us to make things that people will watch so that they will see the adverts that the advertisers provide. Now, as a pseudo-monopoly, they have a responsibility to free speech, I think, because there are no credible alternatives. People talk about DTube, it's virtually unusable in a lot of ways, unfortunately. BitChute works, but just doesn't have the audience yet. Yeah, there's no real alternative at present, so the best option is to push at YouTube. And we can do that through collective action. Now, it's not really a union. A lot of more right-wing voices, I think, are wary of that term. It really is more of a pressure and lobby group on behalf of creators and viewers. So I don't think you need to worry about that. It's just a catchy name. Not that there's anything wrong with collective action. That is the only way in which workers, which is what we are, can really equal the pressures that come from other forces, because they need us. And if we work together, our collective might can rival that of corporations or whatever else. What can we actually practically do? What seems to have forced YouTube into action in the past is bad media relations. And it's been the media that has been leading the charge and kind of forcing them to be more censorious. The media creates a fuss, companies react, come at YouTube, YouTube makes changes. It's all rather knee-jerk. But if we can get media attention, if we can create a big enough fuss, like a blackout or a single video expressing our grievances that everyone uploads for the same day, so everyone's feed is flooded with this. These are ways that we can create events and cause them to have to pay attention. Similarly, you could have protests or sit-ins or something at VidCon. But the main thing to do, I think, is to get that media attention and to operate collectively, kick up a stink, and bring these problems to the media's attention. To do that, you're going to need big YouTubers to sign on, and you're going to need lots of YouTubers to sign on. So I think you need a clear message, a clear target of what you want. Now, a lot of people regard what Jorg has presented as being over the top. His demands are too demanding. Well, that's a negotiating position. You start from the most extreme end of what you want so that you can compromise and so you can get the other person to move their position by you giving concessions. So I wouldn't worry about that either. The perfect is the enemy of the good, as many people like to say now. So if we can just get them to shift a little, that's still going to be a massive gain for all of us. So I strongly endorse the YouTubers Union. I encourage you all to sign up and to tell creators that you like to sign up. and let's start thinking about collective action we can take to get the media's attention, the advertisers' attention, and YouTubers' attention. There's similar problems elsewhere, and the similar necessity for solutions. Twitter's asking for them, Jack is asking for them. He probably won't listen, but as many people as possible should speak up and inform Twitter of what they think will make things better. For my part, what I think will make things better is working to break down the self-ghettoization that has gone on. Twitter should serve up content that pops those bubbles. So if their algorithms can identify someone who is on the right, it should introduce them to centrist and even left-wing articles and ideas from time to time, and vice versa. Block lists and so on are not useful. They should be used against spam and similar problems like that, but instead they get used to maintain these ideological echo chambers. Maybe set them so they stop after a while, so you would have to re-block people. That might be a way to approach that. Matt Jarbo suggested that getting rid of block entirely and replacing it with mute would be a better way to go about things. I think that's probably a good idea, because blocking just creates drama and more tension. Primarily though, I think they have to stop throwing off people whose views are however obnoxious but don't break the law, and these rules need to be applied consistently and evenly, and that applies to YouTube as well. Things need to be fair across the board. Everyone needs to be treated the same way. If you break the rules, no matter who you are, you should be punished. But those rules should be a lot less stringent, in my not so humble opinion. What built all of these sites is the ability to express oneself freely. Twitter was much better when it was more of a free-for-all. It was much more engaging, you encountered people much more organically, your timeline worked properly, all the rest of these things. Similarly, YouTube was much better when it was strange and weird, and it was people putting whatever they wanted out there, whether it be artistic or political commentary or whatever else. So long as they're not breaking the law, there shouldn't be an issue there. If there were more diverse platforms, we wouldn't need to pressurize these ones, but we do need to, unfortunately. I think the main things we need to get Jack to do, and YouTube to an extent as well, because they have this trusted flagger issue, they need to bring people on board to advise them who are pro-free expression, who aren't pushing a particular ideological agenda necessarily, who are there to remind them to safeguard the things that made these platforms good and great from the start. They should have, like, the Electronic Frontier Foundation or other similar online free speech groups as advisors, as a counterbalance to the people like Feminist Frequency or the Southern Poverty Law Center or whatever else who are advising them. Not their political opposites per se, but people who are concerned with rights and freedoms and the social effects of censorship and so on. At the moment, they just have the devil on their shoulder. They need the angel as well, if you follow. And it's not like banning or removing these people, like, say, InfoWars on YouTube, is going to do any good. When you get rid of these people, it just feeds this persecution complex, whether that be the right, the far right, or the conspiracy theorists. I mean, if you take down a conspiracy theorist channel, what does it do? It lends credibility to their theories. And unless they're actively advocating for or calling for violence or something else that causes genuine harm, I don't think there's any basis to remove them. You know, an anti-vax channel is far more harmful to society than someone expressing their racist views through race realism or whatever. And it's better to have it out in the open where it can be debunked, voted down, argued with, debated, and so on, than to have it hidden away or to lend it more cachet than it has by treating it as being far more dangerous than it is, because that is going to make things worse. So that's the common thread running through, I think, is that we need these counteracting voices. We need voices from the other side of the debate, cautionary voices, rights-oriented voices. And we can accomplish these things through collective action if we create enough fuss. And I know that unionization and collective, these are red flag words to people, but we are much stronger as a crowd, and any crowd is made up of individuals. Zang.